mostly because I only speak English, so there's very little point in me watching a German or whatever model railroader explaining what he's doing, but one of them had produced a time lapse of the last year of work that he'd done on his model railway, and most of that was to do with building the benchwork. So while I've got the benchwork frames all set up, I built the first frame, and that's absolutely great for what I want. But I was wondering about mounting the running boards, where the track's going to end up. And watching this guy's video, he's done a very nice job of planning all that. So I'm going to steal his ideas, and because I'm looking at elevated boards for the track, so that the scenery can go both up and down from track level, which a lot of people, it's a problem for, because they tend to build the board frames and then put a tabletop on it, if you like, and then mount the track straight on that. So it's very difficult to have scenery going down at that point, because you have to dig into the table. And you don't really want to do that, because your table will become less, will lose some strength, less strong. But if you build the frame rigid and strong, then you can mount less boards on top. Also, boards are freaking expensive. So if I don't need to have so many, that's a good thing when it comes to price. I mean, I'm looking at something, I think it's something like $50 for a 4x8 board. And the railway is going to be probably getting on for 26 feet by 8 feet. That's a lot of boards. That's about $300 worth of wood. However, if I'm just filling in where the track needs to go and then using styrofoam or sort of wooden frame to provide a base, then I don't have to pay $300 for boards. I can get away with a lot less. How are we doing here? 4,300. So we're a little bit here. But his framework was probably had a little bit more cross beams than mine does, but they weren't straight across. They were staggered. So he'd have one strip of wood across, but then he'd have strips between each of those, but they weren't continuous, which allows you to obviously screw. It gives you access to all the screws all the time. You're not trying to finagle. I need to I need to work out a mechanism for screwing a board in on one side and then not another one in on the other side. How do I get two screws when there's a board in the way? But I guess I can figure that out for myself. And we have just made a bale, so I'm going to call this field good. Lift that up, turn it off, get it wrapped, and I'll just drive like a crazy person. There we go. That will drop out the back. Okay. And placing in the tractor, we will get moving on to the final field. And we'll turn the GPS off. He also did at least a little bit of video of him cutting the boards he was cutting. So again, handy tips for me later when I get round to doing that. Okay, we can cut straight down here. I think from last week I did run down the tanker down to the pond at the bottom here, or lake or whatever it is, and grab 2 loads of water for the greenhouse. So the greenhouse should be going for a little while. I might need to get some seed for it. It should be mostly good for now. So going back to the discussion on field purchase, obviously I want to buy the fields when they're at their cheapest. I'd also like to buy the fields when they don't have a crop in them. Because if I buy a field, I've got to do the soil analysis and it needs to have good lime and fertilizer. If there's a crop in the field, realistically, I can't do the lime, so I'm stuck just doing the fertilizer. At which point my that is where I want to turn. Oh, you toad! No! Oh, come on, dude! Seriously, get out of the way. I can fit through there. Probably going to have to go back and get the baler dude, because I'm not sure he's going to make that. Now, gate is right next to that shed, so we'll go find the baler that's probably stuck in the middle of the road. Yes. With the engine off and probably traffic behind. Oh, yes. Okay. Everybody close your eyes. There now. We're where we want to be. Take this round the back here. And I think we can turn that off. And I will do the mowing in this field, and then I'll do the cutting. Yep, sure looks good. Let's bring you onto the field. No. So yeah, as I said, we're just going to do this manually, and then I'll come in with the baler and finish it off. Do I want GPS on this? Ooh, absolutely not, I don't think. This field is not particularly square, so that's another problem I would have with it, is just if the baler was in the field, it would be dropping bales probably precisely where I want to drive, and that's always a pain in the butt. Bye. Right on the edge of the map again. So again, one of the deals with this map is the edges look great from a long distance. They're not entirely brilliant from close up. And that's true of a lot of maps. We played Lawfolds in 17, and that basically had almost scenery boards around the outside with trees painted on them. Is the way I describe it. So, you know, school playtime. And then we were on Oakfield Farm, which Oxygen David does a very good job of doing the edge of his maps. The only gripe I had with Oakfield Farm was the edge of the map was actually to the right of that hedge, or would have been to the right of that hedge. So you couldn't use the hedge as a an indicator of how far over in the field I could go. It actually, yeah, there was, I'll jump out here. The edge of the map would have been here, and then you've got all that room between the hedge. So if you're trying to do farming by using the edge of the hedge, you were going to get stuck on the edge of the map. Here we just got stuck on the edge of the map, but the edge of the map is in the middle of the hedge. So if I hadn't been driving through the hedge, I wouldn't have had a problem. And that's kind of the issue there. But different map makers, different ways of doing things. So I think that's one of the reasons why I like Oakfield Farm. It's very natural feeling, and he's also managed to consider the map edges so that it looks like the map goes a lot further. Oxygen David, as I said, just as good. You look at most of his maps, they times like this, I want GPS on. Okay, let's do that. Set A 90. And that'll jump there, and we are all good. Okay. Because now that I have the headlands, I can try and run alternate rows. I think I messed up there. That might be one row. I don't know. Okay. One. And the other. Oh, and I went way too far there. Good grief, I messed that turn up. However, it is what it is. Okay. Well, it doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to get done. And the result here is I do like to have GPS on my big tractors a lot of the time. Sometimes I'll just buy a tractor because it's going to be sort of a menial task tractor which is mostly used for carting or collecting bales or something like that. And if I think I can get away with it, I won't put GPS on it. Although eventually I probably will. This tractor, I bought it without GPS because it was my biggest tractor and I could use it to cart stuff. I didn't have any equipment on the farm that justified using it for anything except carting. Obviously, you know, I had a small mower set, which we've got a Massey Ferguson with 125 horsepower. That is perfectly adequate to run all of the mowing equipment that we had at that time. So you don't put your most expensive tractor on mowing if you can avoid it, because maintenance is going to be twice as much as it would be, or 3 times as much as it would be, compared with using the Massey Ferguson. So, yeah, just don't do that. Now that we have this big mowing system, I really need to make sure that I'm using the best tractor for the job, but consequently this tractor is now not only hauling grains to market, it's also being used for some of the bigger field work. I don't have, for example, a big seeder. I can run the seeder that we have on the Massey Ferguson. So quite frankly, I'd be wasting money seeding with the John Deere. But the John Deere does give me the possibility of eventually getting a bigger seeder that I need to use it to run. The manure cart, 35,000 litres of manure in the back of it, and that only the John Deere can run, and it can only run it downhill, so that's a little bit of a problem for the farm. I need a bigger tractor to run my manure cart. The slurry tanker can be run with this tractor or the John Deere, so it actually makes more sense to use this tractor on the manure tanker or the slurry tanker than it does the John Deere, because it's cheaper. However, if I'm doing some other task with this tractor, then yeah, we'll use the big tractor when we don't have a spare one. Let's try and pay attention to the beeping, and then we won't miss swaths of grass as we're driving around. Obviously the auto unload for the rat bale is somewhat not of a problem. Okay, go. Oh. But I think I do want to replace this tractor at some point with something a little bit bigger, but I don't know what. And we do need to upgrade the Massey Ferguson, because we are slowly getting past the point of I've got equipment specifically, that I can save money by running the Massey Ferguson on. So for example, the mower that we have that is low horsepower can also be used as a mulcher. So at the moment, the Massey Ferguson uses the old mower for mulching. But I'd like to get a bigger mulcher at some point. So that's another task that the Massey Ferguson can't do. I've got a round baler that just bales round bales. And I can always use the Massey Ferguson on that because it's only got a 90 horsepower requirement. But it's going to end up as the only thing I have on the farm that the Massey Ferguson can actually run. At which point I need something a little bit bigger, probably with front loader arms, just because I've got arms on the Massey, and so I'd like to keep that functionality. Although we've got a lot of small lifters, skid steers and teleskids and what have you, or teletrucks, that frankly they're doing most of the lifting, so I don't need a tractor with lifting arms anymore. At least not something that's going to be used a lot of the time. Okay, let's see what I can achieve here. Looks like most of this is straight across, and we caught it in time. Back up very slightly. But still. But yeah, as I said, a little bit larger than this one. This one's just shy of 250 horsepower, which, even then, it's a good tractor. It's just getting a little bit old, but we don't have to replace it immediately. John Deere's going to stay on the farm because it's just big. Generally, past Saturday series, I've always needed 2 big tractors, because you end up with one doing ploughing or cultivating and the other one doing seeding. Or in our case, we'll have one doing muck spreading and another one doing seeding. And the mid-sized ones like this one are really there just for picking up the slack when we have a couple of jobs to do that don't need 500 horsepower or 400 horsepower. And then typically I've got a very small tractor. In the past it has been a Massey Ferguson 5 series, or a Valtra G is also another popular small tractor when it comes to picking tractors for my farm. And tractors like that, I can run out with a sprayer, and it's very cheap, it's very quick. They've got a good turn radius, but there's nothing to stop us going a little bit bigger. 175, 180 horsepower. Yeah, okay. It's going to be a little bit more in maintenance, but it's going to be a little bit more capable. And with Farm Sim 90 or 22, we have mulching, we have rolling, so having a slightly more capable tractor may be good for the farm. Okay, how do we do this? Still didn't get the full row. Okay. Stop. Too much. Anyway, what do we got? It is coming on 11 o'clock. Now, as I said, Mrs. Ossie and the kids are out today, so, or at least this morning. So, we'll see if I can get to a convenient point, which may be lunchtime, on lunchtime game time. That might be a thing. Or, failing that, my personal lunchtime when I start feeling a little bit hungry. But that's a good hour away. One of the things I do have to make sure I do today before Mrs. Osa comes home, and I think she's planning to be home about 2 o'clock or 2:30. 2:45. I do need to make sure I put some air in the tyres of the car. That's been parked up in the garage for almost a month now. And so it was complaining one of the tyres was low. And I just stuck it in the garage and said, fine, I'll do it next time. But we're almost back to the point where we need 2 vehicles at least 1 day a week. So I just want to make sure that both of them are ready to go at a moment's notice, as opposed to, well, darn, I'm going to have to pump the tyres up before we can use this one. Okay, how are we doing with the grass? We have oh, a full tank. There's a ridge there, there's a ridge there. It stopped snowing and it's now very windy. So if you can hear creaking in the background, that's somewhat gale force winds, and it is 16 degrees outside, so freaky cold again, because why not? I'm good down to about 20 degrees, but after that, especially in this sort of wind, I don't want to be outside. So another good job that I cut the wood last night, although it was cold. I do have 3 benches to construct. Unfortunately, it was time for supper and my fingers were freezing, so you probably don't want to be wearing woolly gloves while you're cutting wood. That would just be a bad idea. Anyway, a little bit more. We'll keep going round. We might grab that as well. I missed a little bit there. But I think we'll call that field done. We do have 76% of a bale. So that'll add to our sales, or our supply of bales next time we cut our grass. Still good to follow and jump over to the John Deere. Alrighty, we can turn GPS off. I do have GPS on the Deutz as well. Because that pretty much started out as our our sole farm tractor when we started.